In my opinion, if you need an assistant, you're probably doing too many things. Many celebrities and influencers get their schedules so jam-packed though that they require someone to be keeping track of everything. Or perhaps they're so rich that they just need someone to bring them a coffee whenever they need it. However, when you're that close to an influencer or celebrity, you really get to know what they are truly like behind the scenes. And that's why today we're going to be talking about all the former assistants that pretty much expose their bosses. I'm going to get into all those details in just a moment, but first, if you could do us a big favor, please tap that like button, we'd really appreciate it. And with that out of the way, let's begin. Coming number 10, Soulja Boy. A report came out from The Guardian that said Soulja Boy the rapper was being sued by his former personal assistant. In the lawsuit, she accused him of doing a number of heinous things, from locking her in a room to subjecting her to all kinds of abuse. The 30-year-old musician is alleged to have locked the unnamed female assistant in a room for 3 days and assaulted her repeatedly during that time. Along with that, the claimant is alleging that he also abused her physically, verbally, and even would withhold her paychecks. The woman began working for Soulja Boy in December of 2018, and according to her, she was expected to not only be available at all times, but also do cook, clean, chauffeur, style his hair, and perform personal assistant tasks for him as well. In return for her working 20 hours a day and 7 days a week, he had promised her payment of $500 per week. The lawsuit also states that after a month of working for him, he began sending unsolicited and inappropriate photos to her. Pretty gross. Coming number 9, Courtney Love. Back in 2012, Courtney Love's legal bills were mounting heavily. She was sued by her former assistant Jessica Labrie, who claimed that she owed her unpaid wages and that during her time working for Courtney, she was subjected to unethical requests, such as being told to falsify legal documents and even hire a hacker, all of which she refused to do. Not to mention, Courtney had promised her a full ride scholarship to Yale University, but that never panned out. Jessica claims that she was told that she would work with Courtney's music management company for $30 an hour, but stated in the lawsuit that she was never compensated those promised wages, despite working more than 60 hours per week. Courtney's publicist released a statement on her behalf and said, "The allegations are completely unfounded and are being made with malice by a disgruntled former employee." Although this lawsuit was also coming off the heels of a different lawsuit that Courtney had for a non-payment to a former attorney. So really, it seems like she has a history of forgetting to pay people who work for her. Coming number 8, Kourtney Kardashian. Now, although Kourtney may seem like one of the more rational Kardashians, this story from her former nanny is a bit nuts. A nanny who had previously worked for the reality show star exposed Kourtney and her ridiculous requests. While speaking with Star Magazine, the ex-nanny revealed that Kourtney demanded to never be called by her first name. Instead, she preferred to be called, wait for it, Madam. Not ma'am, but Madam. In the interview, she said, "She asked me to call her Madam at all times. I once slipped up and called her Kourtney, and she threw a hissy fit. I never made that mistake again." If this is how Kourtney treats her employees, imagine what it would be like to work with Kim or Kris Jenner. Coming number 7, Christian Bale. Harrison Chung worked as Christian Bale's personal assistant for over a decade and even wrote a book called Christian Bale: The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. And the stories that he tells about the star in this book are absolutely insane. In one portion exposing Bale, he says, "If Christian was away filming on location, I would take care of his 5 pets, along with stray possums in the backyard as a special request. I would do anything from sniffing Christian's armpits for BO right before he hit the red carpet to making emergency sock runs if Christian was all out of clean ones. Sometimes duties were as exciting as traveling to film festivals and as dull as watching Christian surf in case something needed to be done on shore." I just can't get over the fact that Christian actually hired someone to sniff his armpits. It's like, bro, do it yourself. Harrison would later tell the Daily Mail that it took 5 years of therapy to get past the post-traumatic stress that he had from working with Bale. Coming number 6, Ben Stiller. Usually when we see Ben Stiller on screen, he's playing the nice guy, but as we all know, celebrities are usually quite different in person. And according to a former assistant that worked with Ben during his time on the set of Zoolander, Ben can be quite bizarre. On his first day working, this assistant was told all the do's and don'ts of handling Ben Stiller's every need. In fact, there were even specific instructions about how he liked his iced tea. According to them, it had to be unsweetened, and then they had to sweeten it themselves with 1.5 packs of Splenda inside of 16 ounces of unsweetened Nestea iced tea. The assistant recounted one time that they brought Stiller's iced tea in a paper cup. He was then told to get a glass, put more ice in the glass, then pour the iced tea from the paper cup into that glass. Then upon obliging to this request, Ben took one sip and said, "The hell is this?" He was referring to the condensation that had formed on the glass, which would have been avoided had he just drank out of the paper cup. But regardless, he asked his assistant to continually wipe off the condensation for him. Apparently, Ben doesn't like it when his hands get wet because if he has to shake someone's hand, then they may think that his palms are sweaty. Odd, but okay. Just be like, nah, my stupid assistant brought me a glass. Coming number 5, Jennifer Lopez. Believe it or not, but Jenny from the block has had an awful history of treating employees pretty poorly. From chauffeurs getting tired of driving her around without proper meal breaks, to people like her makeup artist being shunned after accidentally leaking details about her marriage to Mark Anthony. Although nothing compares to what her former assistant told Gawker about. According to the assistant, this is what J-Lo said she required from them. The person has to be graceful under pressure, have thick skin, and be resourceful in foreign countries. You'll be on call 24/7, you have to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. You have to know when J-Lo has her snack time, she won't say she's hungry, and you're expected to have food waiting. Oh, so you also have to be a mind reader. Okay. cool. Coming in number 4, Lena Dunham. Okay, this one is absolutely insane. Lena Dunham is an actress, writer, director, and producer, but when it comes to feeding herself, she just can't be bothered. Rather than taking a moment away from her work to sit down and eat lunch, Lena decided to just have her trusty assistant feed her a quesadilla. I'm sorry, but that is childlike behavior, and if any boss of yours asks you to feed them, you gotta say no. I don't care how famous you are, no one should be entitled to having other people hand bomb food into their mouth, especially a quesadilla. It's so messy. Coming number 3, Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron is an award-winning actress and has described herself as sometimes being a mean person. Well, she is a self-proclaimed, the B word, rhymes with Stitch. She only grabbed that title for herself after a fan at WonderCon said that she played evil characters very well, and I don't think that her former assistants would necessarily disagree with this. According to an interview they did with Star Magazine, the assistant was not allowed to speak or even look at her. Then one of her former nannies also revealed that if she had anything to communicate with her boss about the kids, she actually had to write it down in a diary. Not exactly the best way to inform a parent about what's been going on with their kids. Hopefully she put in some exception in case of emergencies, because I can see a number of ways that this terrible no talking rule could go. She can't even say that she just doesn't have the time to talk to them, because if this diary thing is true, then she has to find some time to sit down and read the odd journal entries from her staff. I mean, imagine just her sitting down and just reading, "Dear diary, I hate my boss." I wonder if anyone wrote that on their last day. Coming number 2, Scott Rudin. You may not have ever heard of Scott Rudin before, but he actually holds the unofficial crown of being Hollywood's most feared boss. Forever, he was upheld as being the legendary producer of The Truman Show and many other big films, although his revolving door of former assistants revealed some pretty wild stories about him. Apparently, he has had as many as 250 assistants from the year 2000 to 2005, one of which was fired for bringing him a bad breakfast muffin. What's crazy here, though, is that even as his ex-assistants blasted him in the press for how terrible he was, he just embraced it and claimed to have an unforgiving management style. Although that certainly does not excuse the accounts I read about assistants being overworked, dealing with his random fits of rage, and even having the occasional object tossed at them. Last but certainly least in our number 1 spot, Harvey Weinstein. Now, we all pretty much know about the heinous things that Harvey Weinstein did, so finding out that he also mistreated his former assistant shouldn't have come as much of a shock. Back in May of 2020, Harvey's assistant Rowena Chi broke her non-disclosure agreement to discuss how this disgraced movie producer treated her. First off, while she was working as a new assistant at Miramax, she said that she and Weinstein were discussing film productions and scripts in a late-night meeting when she declined his request for a massage. He then allegedly pushed her onto the bed before she managed to escape the room. She then had to keep this a secret for over 20 years because of that NDA that she had signed. All staff at Miramax that signed that NDA had the fear of God put into them, so they never reached out for emotional support. While speaking with the press, she said, "We were told by our own lawyer, not even just Harvey's lawyers, that we must treat this time as a black hole. It said very specifically in our contract that we can only refer in very general terms to having worked for Harvey, and we can never talk in any detail about any aspect of our life during this time ever to anybody, not just the media and lawyers and doctors and therapists, but there was also a clause about friends and family. It locked us out of any type of emotional support whatsoever." But guys, that's been the top 10 famous people exposed by their former assistants. But before we get out of here, I'm gonna check out some of your comments from the video titled "Top 10 Influencers Who Claim They Haven't Had Plastic Surgery." DTH says, "I think that Arena and Emily could be saying the truth about their lips." Yeah, it feels like they are telling the truth about that. There's a few people where you're like, that's cap, but I feel like they're telling the truth about that. Batgirl says, "What happens to smash the like button? I don't want to tap it." Too many people were triggered by me saying smash it, so we're just gonna kindly ask you to tap it. Just click it. Should we change it to click it? Click that like button? Is that a midway point? Can we do that? Smash is cringe now. Titra Adkar says, "Well, most of them are telling the truth because they didn't have a plastic surgery. Technically, they had plastic surgeries." That's a fine loophole that you found there in the wording. Sarah Love says, "Efron looks like he has a horrible oral infection." Yeah, it did look like he had surgery done somewhere that just didn't know what they were doing because his face was just so swollen, so inflamed for so long. I hope he's better now. Greg Cassini says, "Emily could so be an Anne Hathaway movie double." I mean, I'm sure she has better things to do, but I see the comparison. Yeah, they look pretty similar. But either way, guys, that has been today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I've been your host, Johnny Rogers, and until next time, stay classy, YouTube, or at least try.